and the chat box. Okay, and now let's go for the trigger. Okay. The dream house. Okay. Now in the previous lecture, basically we began with the first trigger. Okay. We just bring this out. Now, in the previous lecture, we began with a trigger topic, and we said basically trigger is a special type of stored procedure, and we basically use triggers to automate the actions in SQL Server, and also triggers support what we call it as the enterprise constraints, especially if I have what we call it the procedural business rules, the procedural business rules. Okay. And then after that, after we discuss about trigger, we said we have two types. We have after trigger and instead of trigger. Okay. And then we discuss about the temporary tables deleted and inserted. Then we begin to give examples. And the first example, we first begin with applying a constraint. Okay, so we apply this constraint. And then we said that this constraint basically, which is adding the constraint which is check for salary, we can create a trigger which is equivalent to that constraint, okay? Which is equivalent to that constraint. And basically here we created this trigger and we were modifying it. Basically, for example, we discuss about how we can access, let's say, the inserted table, and also okay, how if I don't have rollback, what will happen, and so on. Okay, so we have the discussion about that, trigger earlier. Now the question will be is there any question about the previous trigger? Is there any question about a trigger? Before I proceed with the remaining of the codes. Any question till now before I proceed?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, let's go here for the database that I have here. Then I'll go for staff. Okay. So let's go for Dream Home database. Then let's go for the tables. Okay. Then I'll go for the staff table. Now, we said here when we have triggers, we have a check star, which is the one that we have done earlier, and we make it as disable. So for now, what what I want to do, I want to apply this trigger, which is cell position a check. Okay. Just I want to ask, can you hear the noise? There is some noise, some construction noise. Can you hear me well, or the noise is really high?
There is a bit of noise, but it's okay. We can hear you.
It's okay. Okay. Because there's some construction going on as well. It's okay. So let's go for this trigger. Now we said earlier the issue with the integrity enhancement features like the primary key, basically the foreign key, check, and so on. All these constraints basically they are focusing on what? On one column per time. Basically, in major cases, they are focusing on what? One column per time. But using the triggers, I can either add the conditions on more than one table, or I can do what? I can go to add conditions across tables. So let's go here for this trigger, which is I want to go for applying after trigger on update command. Then this is the syntax where I want to get the information. So I want to check if the data from inserted is where position is equal to manager and salary is greater than 30,000. In this case, I must print manager salary must not exceed 30,000. Then I must do rollback. Okay. So let me first create the trigger. So highlight. Let me just use Dream Home database. And then I'll go for execute. Okay. So now here I will go to check what the values of two columns at the same time, the values of the two columns at the same time. Now, when I go here to update staff information, so first let me just view the data from the staff table. Okay, and let's assume I want to update the SL41 to make it 50,000. Now you'll notice here that salary, or in our query we said salary must be what? Must be not more than 30,000 if the position is equal to manager. Therefore, when I run the query, what will happen? Let's see what will happen. When I go for execute, notice here it says the ability statement conflict with the check constraint and so on. No. Now this error, 1 minute here, this error is conflicting with what? This is conflicting with the built-in constraint. So I will go just to delete the constraint, okay? Or is it not that trigger? This is what the previous constraint that I have created. So let me just delete it. Okay, and let me run the query once again. So highlight, execute. So notice here, manager salary must not exceed 30,000, and the transaction ended in the trigger, trigger. Okay, so here simply because I met this condition, I done what rollback for the update. That means if I want to check my staff information, the salary for S41 is not updated to 50,000. So highlight, execute. Okay, notice here the value for SL41 remains same. Why? Because he is manager. Because he is manager. Now, if I want to update, for example, SG37, okay, in this case, the query will work or to give me an error. If I want to go for SG37, the query will work or I will get an error. It will work, right? Because simply it is an assistant, it is not a manager, so that means the salary will be updated. So highlight, execute, one row affected. So when I go for the staff, notice here I will have what? I will have the value as 50,000, as 50,000. Clear? So this is just a simple trigger where I can check for the conditions of more than one column, Clear? Any question? Let me just add it back to the 12,000 to the original value. Any question till now?
Sir.
Yes.
I have a question. Just making sure
Yes.
if the rollback is if the rollback statement is not there, it will still be updated, right?
Yes, that's right. If I'm using an after trigger, if I comment rollback, that means if I said rollback is not there, it is like you didn't do anything. Yes, you are showing the message, but basically the data will be saved in the system. Okay, so therefore rollback must be done. If I'm using after, we'll see later in the instead of, no, we don't need basically a rollback. Now I'll give an example for that when I reach for instead of a trigger.
All right, then. Thank you, sir.
Okay, most welcome. Now,
one more thing, sir.
Yes.
So basically now we created the trigger for manager position only, right?
Yes, if the position is equal to manager, yes,
yeah.
and salary is greater than 30,000. That's right.
So we can create more than one trigger for the same table.
For sure. After trigger, yes. Now I will show you. I can create, but the problem will be you need to be aware that the triggers are not conflict. Okay, so that means the logic must not have conflict with between triggers. But can I do that? Yes, we can do that for after trigger. Instead of per action, it will be one. I will show you this with the example. Okay. No worries. I will go to highlight this one by one. Okay. Now, one of the things that we will depend heavily when we are dealing with database, when we're dealing with database is basically what we call it as system views. And now, what is system view basically? Or system, or we hear the term system catalog or metadata. Okay. If I go to any of my databases, and then let's assume here I'll go for Dream Home database. Here we have the view, right? You know what is a view, right? We discussed about this earlier. But we have something called system view. System views are basically built-in views, okay? They are built-in views that we can use to access certain information. Basically, I will use it in triggers. I think use it earlier in the procedure. Later, I'll use it in encryption and so on. Now, one of the use is system triggers. That means it will go to give me the information about what? about triggers. So I can here to system views, for example, filter setting, and I can say what is the name. So I will say, for example, this is a trigger. If I want to, sorry. And I will say okay. So notice here, these are the, let's say, views related to what two triggers. Now notice here, when one of them is what system server trigger, there is one called system trigger, which is this one. Okay. So let me just highlight this one. So I will select all from system triggers, and let's see what will happen. Notice here, when I check this one, I will be able to check my triggers and what are the current state of my triggers. So for example, here we have a check cell itself, for example, as trigger. And then notice here, it says it is disabled. So it is one, not here, it is one. The other trigger like cell position is not disabled, so it is 0, and so on. Okay, so usually it is always good to check what are the system views that we have related to the specific topic that we have. And I will depend on this system views heavily when I go for encryption topic, because when I do encryption, a lot of things are done internally. I can't know what is happening inside the system. So at least I can have more insight when I get what the system views, Okay? Clear? Any question till now? Okay, let me also just trigger from, okay, because I will need this diagram right now just to highlight one of the concepts. Till now we are working on what? On the after trigger, right? So we said if I execute the insert into staff, data will be inserted, right? Then after they execute it first, then it will be inserted in the table, then the trigger will be activated, right? I will go to check what is the content. Then after that, if there is some wrong, simply I will do rollback. This is how the after trigger works. Now let's go for the next example here, using instead of a trigger. Now what I want to do here is the following. I want to say simply that if the user tries to delete a record, don't do that. Instead, give him an error. Say, sorry, you can delete that record, or you can delete that row. Okay? So the syntax will be create the trigger, staff delete the name of the trigger, on staff. Till now it is like the after trigger syntax. The difference here is instead of after, I use what? Instead of delete, then as begin, and what I will do here, I will add the code that I want to execute. So what I'm saying here, instead of delete, do the following. Do the following. So highlight, execute. Now notice here, when I go for the triggers, let's go for the tables, and let's go for the staff. Okay, let's go for the, where is it? The triggers, okay, refresh. Now you will notice here the following. I use here raise error instead of a print. Now raise error as a function has more parameter than a print. The print is very simple, just it will show the text on what? On the result, okay, when I execute the query. While raise error will give me more than one parameter. The basic parameters, basically, it will be the error message, the string. Then here I have two values. One is called severity, and the other is called state. Okay. Now, what is severity and what is state? Severity basically are values from from 1 to 25. Depending on this value, the designer will decide how much this error is severe. Let me just show you here. Okay. Let me just go here to Google. Okay. And I will say, okay, raise error SQL server. Okay. Now, when I go for the raise error here, this is Transact SQL, okay, under Microsoft Documents. So here you will have the syntax. Notice here, I can have the message ID. I can even give the message ID if you want, okay? I can have the string. Then here we have something called severity and the state. Now when I go for the arguments here, this is the string, message string, okay? And then here we have, where is it? This one. Severity is the user-defined severity level associated with the message when using the message ID, okay? Usually the values will be from 0 to 1 to 25, and note here for severity levels from 19 through 25, with lock option is required. So here, if I assume that, okay, this is really severe error that happens on our trigger, in this case, I can even add, to log this error and so on. The other option is called state. What is state? Simply, these are numbers from 0 to 255, and this considered to be as, you can say, some sort as a flag. What I mean by that, notice sometimes I can make generic error message, and I can apply it on all tables. So for example, I will say row can't be deleted. This can be applied on a staff table. So I can make, for example, I can say the state is 1. Then I can apply it on a branch table. So I will say the state is 2. Then I can apply it, let's say, on maybe property foreign table. So the state is 3. Now later when I get the error, when I get this generic error, when I look on the state, I will know this appears from which table, referring to the manual that I have, Okay, so this is basically the parameters for the raise error, and you have others. You can later check what are, the parameters that you have here. But in general, usually we use the raise error instead. Oh, severity. Okay, severity basically, it will, as a developer, you will say, okay, how much this error is severe. So you can usually give the result. Usually default will be, if you check on major tutorials or books, the values will be either 16 or 14. Now, who defined this value? It is the designer. So here, if I go for the manual, notice here it says, okay, for severity levels from 19 through 25, okay, the with log option is required. The severity level less than 0 will be understood as 0, and so on. Now, the idea here is that if you, as developer, assume that I said, okay, I want to make severity like 20, for example, this means, okay, usually, normally it will be like 16 or 14. That means, the normal, like severity level. Even, let me show you here, if I run the query, let me just go back. If above, let's just read here the manual. If above, notice here, severity less than 0 will be interpreted as 0. Greater than 25 will be 25. Okay, so it is there. You can later just refer to this one. But let me show you here what will happen in case that I go for something wrong, right? If I go here to check for SL41, right? Let me show you. Okay, SL41. Highlight, execute. Make this one as, okay, 50,000. Highlight, execute. Notice here, this is what the default what? The default message, which is given by SQL Server. So it says the level is 16, state is 1. Okay, usually, if basically there is, if I didn't define it, because here I didn't define the state, right? I said the print. So usually we add the default as what? As 16. This is the default value. Otherwise, I can change the state or the level. But usually, only if I think the thing is really severe, I can add the numbers. Like maybe I'll say like 19, 20, and so on. Okay? Here you can refer to it in this menu here. So notice here, in general, severity level from 20 through 25 are considered as fatal. Okay? If fatal severity level is encountered, the client connection is terminated after receiving the message, and the error is logged in the error and application logs. So that means if you assume that error is really severe, in this case, you will add the values from 20 to 25. You can choose the number. You can choose the number. Okay? Clear? Okay. Now also you can refer to these examples because most likely they will build on the AdventureWorks database, or maybe sometimes like generic, let's say, examples. On what? On Microsoft Documents, on Microsoft Documents. It clear till now? So default is basically 16. Now, when I go here to, okay. Let's go here once again. So I will say what? I will say select information from deleted. Just I will show the deleted data. This is not recorded just for the sake of the explanation, right? But I want to raise the error. So we have created the trigger. Now let's delete the record or a record and see what will happen. Notice here, I didn't add rollback. Notice here, I didn't add rollback. Now, when I go to delete the record, let's assume I want to delete the record which is SL41. So highlight, delete it from staff where staff number is equal SL41, highlight, execute. Notice here what will happen. I will get the message error. This is the level, right? The severity. Then it says row can't be deleted. So notice now when I select the information from the staff table, execute, notice here SL41 is not deleted. So what happens here instead of trigger? Instead of trigger, simply it says, sorry, you can't execute the command, instead do the following. Instead, do the following. That means show the error message. Clear? So rollback here will not appear. Rollback here will not be used because the data is not deleted in first place. Clear this point? Or instead of trigger? Any question? Okay. Now, if you check here for triggers, that depends on the case scenario. Because sometimes I need the action to happen, then I want to evaluate that. Sometimes I will say from beginning, don't, because instead means don't do the action. Don't do insert, don't do update, and so on. One of the limitations for the instead of trigger, I will show it right now, which is, let's assume I copy and paste the same trigger. So I said the same thing here. Create trigger, but I said it is staff underscore delete 123 on staff instead of delete. Notice here the same action, right? If I run this query, notice what will happen right now. Execute. You will get an error. Why? Because we said earlier, you can have one instead of trigger their action. So notice here the message clearly says cannot create trigger staff delete 123 on table staff because instead of delete trigger already exists on this object. In reality, in major times we are using what after let's say triggers, not instead of. So what happens here? I was not able to create another trigger instead of. If I said after, no worries. I can create 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. I can create as I wish, as the numbers of, let's say, after triggers on one table bear one action. There is no limit theoretically. But instead of, no. That means if I create a trigger instead of trigger, which will have delete, insert, and update, what will happen? That is the only trigger that I can create as instead of trigger on my table. Okay? Clear? So state is basically used to indicate on which table. Yes, that's right. We use it as Because sometimes I will make generic error like this one, row can't be deleted. Then I can apply it in all the tables. Rather than going to customize it, just, each time, oh, stuff, no, just I can make it as one simple error. Okay, clear? Okay. Now, what I want to use, till now I was explaining the concepts. Okay, what is after, what instead of. But the next example is basically showing really the use of instead of trigger, or let's say after trigger. Now, usually in the trigger, what I want to do is not only just to check, oh, this data is valid or not valid. No, I want to do something else. I want to do some action. I want to do what? Some action. Not only just, informing the user about, okay, you can delete this record and so on. So what I want to do next is the following. I will go to the staff table. Okay, let me just go to the staff table. This is the staff table, right? Now I will go to add a column here called the status. I'll go to add a column called status. Then later, I will go to modify my trigger, which is instead of delete, and I will say the following. I will say, in case that the user want to delete a record, first of all, the record will not be deleted. Second thing, that record will be updated, or the status column will be updated to have what? Inactive status. So what I'm doing here, I'm not only preventing the action, but also I make another action. And this is basically what the trigger is supposed to do, not only just informing the user, oh, don't do this and that, in general, especially DML triggers. So what I want to do here is the following. I will go to, first, add a new column called the status to my staff table. So highlight, execute. So I use the command alter table, staff, add the status, varchar 10. So now when I check my table, notice here the status column is empty. The status column is what? Empty. Now next what I want to do is the following. Let's assume this one is deleted or disabled. Let me just delete it, okay? The previous one. Or I can use alter, it's okay. So notice here, I want to create another trigger or modify the previous one by saying the following. Create a trigger, the name of the trigger on the staff table, and instead of delete, as begin. First of all, raise error. Staff can't be deleted. Staff changed to inactive status. So I will inform the user that, okay, I didn't delete the record, but it became as inactive status. So I want to show the data from deleted, not required, just to show the message. Then notice here what I have done. I said update staff table, set the status equal to inactive, okay, from staff as S, inner join deleted, because now we have deleted record, right, as D on the condition. So what I'm saying here simply in this code, I'm saying please go to update the staff table to be inactive. So from where to know, okay, which value or for which user, I will go to what? Have the connection string between the staff table and deleted table. Because I will have what? The same value for the primary key or for a staff number. So I will say here where, let's say staff inner join deleted on staff, the staff number is equal to deleted dot staff number. So now when I highlight this trigger, highlight execute, okay, now command completed successfully. Now if I try to delete once again, let me just highlight the records. Notice here till now all the rows here are null, okay. Now when I want to delete, notice what will happen. So I will go to highlight this one, execute. It says staff can't be deleted, staff changed to inactive status. So that means SL41 was not deleted, but status updated to what? To inactive. So when I go for execute, notice here what happens. The record remains there, and the status became inactive. The status became what? Inactive. So you can notice here, you can do a lot of things in trigger. Because simply I prevent the action, then I can do anything on any table, because simply I can write any code inside my trigger. I can write any code inside my trigger. Clear? Any question? Any question before I go for the next example? Okay, so far so good. Okay, now attention, please. Now attention, please. One of the important topics related to security is a concept called audit. State, you mean in the raise error statement? Okay. Now let's assume I want to create a generic error message. Here in the staff table, we have how many tables? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tables. So instead, for each trigger, I will go to say row can't be deleted from, let's say, viewing. Row can't be deleted from staff table. Row can't be deleted from registration. Row can't be deleted from property for rent. Row can't be deleted from private owner. Let's assume I want to put what? Unified message. So I say row can't be deleted. That's all. Now what I can do, simply one of the ways, it is not, you can say that, okay, just I want to say stuff can't be deleted. It is your option, right? As you wish, as you want. But one of the options that SQL will provide is what? Is the status number. So what is status basically? I would say, for example, for the staff table, make it 1. If I create this on a staff table. If I make it on a branch table, this trigger, make this 2. If it is on the branch table, make it 3. Sorry, if it is on property for rent, make it 3, and so on. So later, when the error appears, that row can't be deleted, because usually I will not have one query. Usually I have sometimes scripts or batch file, okay? So depending on the manual, I can check, okay, number 3 means what? This error appears where? Or this error appears on, let's say, branch table. Okay, so I will know that. I can know from where it is located. Now you must say, okay, I don't want to go for this one. Just I want to go for directly make it as a clear message. The row can't be deleted from staff table. Okay, you can do that. You can do that. But usually if you have a huge number of tables, you will get headache to customize the error message. So sometimes what you do, just say, okay, row can't be deleted, then we add the status. Depending on that, yes, I can, know where I get the error message. Clear? Okay. So let's go for the last example here, which is the audit table. Now, what I want to do here is the following. Now, there is one topic totally called audit. I will go to explain in detail what is audit from audit point of view as a process, from management point of view, then how we can apply it in database security. Now let's assume here I want to access a table called the client. A table called what? A client, okay? So these are the information of the a client table. These are the information of the client information. Now, you will notice here, I have here 4 clients, right? Now, what is audit in the first place? Audit basically is a process where I will assume there is some data which is considered to be as having some sort of significance, and I want to track the changes that happens on this data. I want to track the changes that happens on what? This data. In our example here, what I want to do, I want to do the following. I want to know, okay, which information inserted to my client table and which information deleted from a client table. Okay. Now earlier, simply if I delete the report, maybe if I didn't really track the information or create an audit, it will be very hard for me in general to track the log files and say, okay, who done this action? Also, I can't customize. Sometimes audit files are templates, so I can't have too much customization. While in triggers, I can customize what I want to save as data And also, what is the structure of my audit table? What is the structure of my audit table? So let me show you what I mean by that. First of all, I will go to create a table called the client audit. You can name this table as you wish, but usually we put the name of the table, then audit, just to give us an indication that this is what an audit table. This is not normal table. It's not normal table. Then you will notice here the following. The values from, or the columns from a client to max rent, all of these columns are basically the same columns from the original table. As you can see here, all of them, they are what? From the original table. But also I added what? Another two columns. One is called insert delete date, and I added the data type as date time. The other one, I add the flag, which is one character, and here I will decide this here I want to insert, or to say this operation was insertion or this operation was deletion. Okay, clear? So let me first create the audit table, highlight, execute. Now when I go for the tables here, refresh, and then I go for the client audit table. Notice here, let me just view the data. So this is my table, which is empty. Include all till now from client number to max rent. These are like the actual table. Then we have what? Insert, delete, or sorry, insert, let's say, delete date and the flag. Now what I want to do is the following. Let's go for the trigger. In the trigger, simply I will do the following. I will say, create a trigger, okay, call the client AUD on a client table, okay. Then after, insert and delete. So here I have what? Two actions. So either insert or delete actions. Now as I will say, in case the information is inserted, so only I will have the inserted record from what? Inserted table. So I will say, insert into client audit, the table that I have created right now, select, because you know, insert select is one of the commands for insert statement. So I will say insert into client audit, select, client number, first name, last name, telephone number, ref type, and max rent. These are coming from what? From inserted table, because I'm trying to insert a new record, right? Then here I added as developer also two columns. One is called get date, and the other one is what? I represent what? Insert operation. So in case that the record was inserted, I will know the date of insertion. Also, I will know what? If the operation, it is insert or delete. So I will say what I means insert. Okay, so the data will be inserted in the client audit. Otherwise, insert into client audit, I will go to select the information and the get date. Here, this is D, which is deleted from what? Deleted table. That means if I don't insert, the information will be in the inserted table, so they are there. The deleted table will be empty, there is no data, so the effect of this one will not be there. Usually I supposed to add if statement, not to make it like this, okay? Just to ensure that there is no issue. But here, just to make it simple, I said this is insert from inserted table. This is insert statement from deleted table, from deleted, or take the records from the deleted tables. Okay. Now I will go to highlight the trigger, then execute. Okay. Now let me select the information from the two tables, a client and a client audit. Okay. Now, if I want to ask what will happen if I insert this record. The record will be inserted in both tables. That's correct. The record will what? inserted in not only one table, it will be inserted in both tables. In the client table and also in what? In the client audit table. So let's see how this works. So highlight, execute. Notice here, the result here is from what? From the inserted table, right? Because I said here select all from inserted in my trigger. But when I check the tables, highlight, execute, notice here what happens. The first one says, okay, this record was inserted CRs 97, Alex, and so on. This is on the client table. At the same time, a record was inserted where? In the client audit table. So notice here, I have inserted the same data. Additionally, I said this is the insertion delete time, okay? And this is the flag. It indicates what? Indicates the data was inserted in my client table. Okay, later, for example, I will ask you also to add the user who done the insertion and so on. Clear? Now.
So basically, the table you created, it keeps tracks of everything that happens inside the table.
That's right. Anything that happens as insert and delete, simply a copy from it, it will be what? In my client audit table. So if something later goes wrong, I can track what? For sure, you can update any, but if I add now update a statement, because I didn't add if a statement, what will happen? It will record everything. It will record the old value, the new value. I can do that. If you want, I can show it right now. Let me do it after what? After I show you and delete it. If I add update, because I don't do if statement, it will just simply store everything. The old value, the new value, so also I can what? Track what happens. So with the if statement later, because I need to define variables and so on. So if I have, maybe later I can define it with the next lecture, or I can later provide you with the wrong, because with if statement I need to create, let's say, variables, say if this one is equal to this value, do 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it will need a little bit work, but later I can give it to you, no problem. Because I think I didn't explain the concepts of parameters to some the variables, maybe the solve procedure. No problem. Later I can give it to you. No problem. Okay. But at least in this example, if I didn't add if statement, it will be okay, because I will require for update also to be there. Let me show you what I mean by that. Now, if I go to say delete from client, if I said delete from a client, what will happen to my tables? If now I want to delete that record, which I have inserted here, what will happen in my two tables?
It will delete the record.
It will delete the record. What else?
And it will show the deletion flag.
And
in
the
the other
record
table
will be inserted in the other table. So let's
Yes.
go here, highlight, execute. So client deleted from here because I said okay, this is just a mistake that I have done. I supposed to show the error earlier, but no problem. Okay, so deleted from the client. Now when I go for the audit table, execute, notice here what happens. The record now CR97 is deleted, and that record is updated in what? In my table here. So I will have CR97, then this is the deletion date time, and the action was what? Was deleted. So what happens here? Even the record is deleted, but till now I was able to track this information. Clear? Any question? Till now, before I go for the update, just update the query to add update also. Action.
So far, so good.
Okay. Now let's go here to modify the trigger. So I will say here alter, okay. Then I will say here, okay, after insert, delete, and also update. Okay. So I want to modify my query to what? To also be activated when I do what? An update statement. So highlight, execute. Command completed successfully. So I have modified the trigger to also be activated when I do update, right? Now, let me check the information, highlight, execute. And now what I want to do is the following. I want to go to, okay, update maybe which record? Update the rent, for example, okay? Update the rent. Okay, update CR56, okay, rent value, okay. So let me write here an update statement. So I will say update, then I will say a client, okay. Then I will say here set, then I will say max rent is equal, instead of 350, I want to make it as 800. Where? Then what is the condition, or what is the client number? Client number to CR56. Now, what will happen when I run this query? What will happen when I run this query?
It should update.
It should update. What will happen
Yeah.
to the client table?
It will nothing, because oh yeah, it will. Did you add the variable u to the flags, the other table, like you did
No.
with the ID?
No need. Let me
Insertion
show you
and
what I mean
deletion.
by that. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's assume that I didn't add any flag, right? Just what? I have done update. Now notice what will happen. Attention please. Highlight, execute. Now it shows that the data was successfully updated, right? Now let's see what will happen when I get the data. Notice here, what happened was the following. It says that because I have update command, so first it get the information from inserted, which is what, 800. So it is inserted to my audit table here. And also it get the information from what? Deleted. Because we know update will have two things, right? Inserted and what? Information. The new record will be in the inserted table. The old record will be what? From deleted record. So therefore, notice here, I said what? I said here we have insert and delete at the same time. So I know this is the old value, this is the new value. Sorry, this is the old value, this is the new value. That's right. Because in update, what you are doing basically, you are deleting the old value, inserting new value. So therefore, the tables that I have, let me show you what I mean by that. I go here, let me, okay, select all from inserted, right? And select all from deleted. Let me just show you here. Just copy this one here. And also insert it. Let me just alter the trigger. Okay, then let's go to update once again. So I want to make this as 900, for example. So let's see, highlight, execute. Notice here, this is what, this is the inserted data. This is the deleted data tables. So we have the values. So when I go to insert using this query, because I'm saying here what insert into client from inserted table and also from what deleted table. So it happens simply the data will be inserted. So when I check the information now from the two tables, now also I have this insert and delete. Okay, now as I mentioned earlier, if you add if statement, you can just repeat the code once again and say, okay, in case this, I will say this is like update and so on. So I can put instead of I and you and delete, I can say like this is update insert, this is update delete. You can modify it. There is no big issue for that. Okay, but I make the code simple because usually for the first time, students will be focusing on, or the concept of audit will be not clear for the students. So usually there is many questions for that. Okay, clear? Any question before I take the attendance? Okay. No worries, I can show you what you want. If you want a statement, I will bring you with a statement.
Thank you, sir.
Most welcome, most welcome.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
last week you gave us the exercise on the store procedure, and
That's right.
I have done it and I sent you in a private message, and you haven't.
In reality, I was so busy last week with marking
Uh-huh.
for one of the modules was like 90 students. So officially, I didn't maybe check any message.
Yeah,
No worries,
maybe you
later I
can
will
check it
check.
anytime. Yeah,
Okay. No
and
worries.
I also send you some question regarding the assignment as well.
Okay, no.
So
I will
hope you
check
can
it.
answer it. Thank you, sir.
By this week, most likely, yes, I'll be able to check all the messages.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, sir.
Okay, have a nice day. Have a nice day. Okay, so that's all for today. Any question?
Thank you,
Before I
sir.
finish? Most welcome, and have a nice day. And happy Merdeka to
Sir,
everyone, and stay safe.
hello.
Yes, hello.
Can you update my attendance because it's lagging for me? I can't update my own attendance.
Okay, just give me 1 minute. Let me wait for the students who have they try to scan. Just give me 1 minute, then I will go to scan it manually.
Okay.
Okay. Now, okay, I will just move to the manual. So your name?
Number 4.
Number 4, Ahmed. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Most welcome. Anyone else? Most welcome. Most welcome. Thank you, sir. Have a nice day. Okay. Most welcome. So that's all, and see you next lecture. Assalamu alaikum.